Hey homeschoolers, this is Jim Pence with See the Light, and today we're talking about digital art. What equipment do I need? I'm glad you joined me today, and we're going to talk real quick about what kind of equipment you need to get started doing digital art. Now, from a homeschooling perspective, expenses can be a top priority, trying to figure out how to fit everything into the budget. So I'm kind of organizing this from probably the most expensive to the least expensive. But as you go through this list that I'm going to give you, you may find that you have some or all of the things that you already need to get started. So let's go quickly through. I'm going to give you some pros and cons of each, and we'll see what we find. First, you need something to draw on. That's again, if you're doing regular art, that's a piece of paper or a canvas or whatever. But what do you do for digital art? Well, there are several options. One is an iPad or a tablet or something similar to that. When I say tablet in this context, I mean something that has a screen that is a display, and you're actually writing or drawing on the display itself. So that's your first option. The pros are those are very portable. For me as an artist, it feels most natural because I can carry it around with me like I would a sketchbook or a sketch pad. So I really like working on my iPad. Now the cons there obviously are expense. Using a tablet like that it tends to be high end, although you may already have an iPad or you may be able to find a used one. So that's the first option. Another option that's similar would be a touchscreen laptop. I have a touchscreen laptop, and it works about the same as a tablet, although mine is an older one and it doesn't flip all the way around. Again, the pros are about the same. Portability feels reasonably natural, although for me not quite as natural as carrying around a tablet. Cons, again, expense. If you have to go out and buy a touchscreen laptop, particularly some like the Microsoft Surface and things like that, can be pretty expensive. Also, if it's not one of the newer laptops, then it tends to be awkward and heavy and cumbersome. So again, not a great option, but it is a workable one. The next option obviously is a desktop computer. The pros, most people have one, particularly if you're a homeschooler. You very likely have one. Another pro is that to draw on a desktop, you use a different kind of a drawing tablet. It doesn't have a display on it for the most part, but it's kind of like a huge trackpad, and those can be actually surprisingly affordable. So desktop computing for homeschool or digital art is actually probably one of the more affordable options. Cons, well, obviously it's not portable. You can't take it anywhere. You can't carry it around like a sketchbook. Also, for me, it's kind of awkward to draw on a tablet that doesn't have its own screen. And so I'm having to draw on the tablet, but I actually have to look at the computer screen. And again, some people pick it up very easily. For me, it's just not a real natural feel. So for me, that's a con. But what about a smartphone? One of the pros for smartphones is almost everybody has one anymore, and they're, of course, extremely portable. You can carry those with you everywhere, and most of us do. The cons of a smartphone, it's a very tiny drawing surface, and it can be really difficult to do much in the way of serious drawing, although there are some who do and do well. But for me, that's a con. I have tried drawing on my phone, and I just don't like to do it. And if you're a parent and you're doing digital art in homeschool, then if your kids don't have their own phones, then they might be borrowing yours, which may not be a great option either. So those are the options for what to draw on. But the second thing you need is something to draw with. And there are, again, several options here. The best option is a pressure-sensitive stylus. And there are different ones that are available. Apple Pencil is one of those. Microsoft Pen or Surface Pen is another. There are other ones that you can buy that are Bluetooth pressure-sensitive styluses or styli. Those are the pros of a pressure-sensitive stylus is they are the most realistic because as you draw, you can actually make it work like a regular pencil or pen. The mark that you put down is going to change depending on how much pressure you're putting down, just like if you were drawing with a pen. And so that is probably one of the best or the biggest pros for a pressure-sensitive stylus. The downside or the cons are they can be expensive. Apple Pencil and Surface Pen both come in at about $100. There are cheaper ones that you can buy. The problem with most of those is they're not universal, and that's even true of the Apple Pencil or Surface Pen. Apple Pencil is you've got to have an iPad. Surface Pen, you need to be using the Microsoft Surface. Others, some tablets and apps will support them, some won't. So that's a downside. You can spend money on these, but unless you already have an app or a tablet that's going to work with it, then your money probably isn't going to be well spent. Another thing, particularly if you have children, these are very easy to misplace, lose track of, and if you've got a $100 pencil, you really don't want to lose track of it. So that's kind of a con. There are also what I would call a regular stylus, which means it's just it's a stylus, but it's not Bluetooth and it's not pressure sensitive. The pros, these are much less expensive. You can get them for sometimes just a few dollars, depending on how good a one you can get. You can get some that are a little bit more precision for a little bit more money, but again, they tend to be very inexpensive. And they work well with pretty much all tablets and apps, so there's really not a compatibility problem. The cons of a regular stylus is you don't have pressure sensitivity. Depending on the kind of tips that you have, they tend to wear out faster if you're doing a lot of drawing. And again, they're easy to lose. Then the third one, and probably maybe the most obvious, is your finger. Well, what are the pros? Well, it's always with you. You're not going to lose your finger, at least hopefully not. And especially with younger children, it works surprisingly well. Think finger painting. A finger can be a great artificial stylus or substitute stylus if you're drawing, and of course it's very affordable. So that's those are the pros for your finger. There are some cons, unfortunately. A finger is not as precision or precise a tool, particularly for adults. The older you get, the bigger your fingers get, and if you're trying to really draw any detail, it just doesn't work real well. Also, again, you don't have pressure sensitivity, and I've found if I try to use my finger then my fingertip tends to cover up where I'm trying to draw. And so again, it comes back to the detail and precision. You just don't have it with a finger. But again, with kids, it's not necessarily a bad option, particularly with younger children, as a good alternative, or at least a low-cost alternative. And then there's a fourth, and I'm going to list it mostly to tell you why you shouldn't go this direction, and that is a mouse. The pros of a mouse, obviously, you probably already have one, and they're really cheap. But what are the cons? Well, the cons are they're terribly difficult to draw with. The hand movements that you use with a mouse are significantly different from what you would do when drawing. And so it's just not a great option for doing digital art. You know, if you're experimenting with a little bit of software that you're looking at and you don't have anything else handy, then it can at least be used to give you an idea of what you're working with. But for any serious work, a mouse just isn't a good option, and it has what I would call a high frustration quotient. If you're trying to teach children, they'll get tired of trying to draw with a mouse pretty quickly. So basically, don't use a mouse, or don't try to use a mouse. So, in summary, what do you need to get started? What kind of equipment do you need? Well, you need something to draw with and something to draw on. With desktop computer with a low cost drawing tablet. You can get those as low as $20 or $30. That's a great option to start with. If you have an iPad or you want to invest in an iPad, I wouldn't go out and deliberately buy something that expensive unless you have a child that is a serious artist who is already really doing well in art. But it's something that if you happen to already have one, it's a great option too. Need something to draw on, that's the tablet or whatever, something to draw with. You need a stylus of some kind, and then you need a medium. Well, what is the medium in digital art? Well, they're digital art apps, but there are a number of different options, and so I'd rather not cover those today because it's going to make this video too long. So next week, we're going to talk about some of the different apps that you can use. There are a ton of them, and most of them don't cost very much, and there are some really, really good free apps out there. So that's the most exciting thing, is there are some really good resources that you can use for doing digital art, and they don't cost all that much. So we'll talk about that next week, and until then, I hope you will begin to investigate. I'm going to include a PDF that has this little outline that I've just walked through, plus some links to some places that you can at least get some reviews on some of the things that you might need. Until then, have a great week, and keep drawing and have fun.